The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio. Want the real story behind the sound bites and headlines? Let's find the facts. Remember, it's not a conspiracy theory if it's the truth. You are not paranoid or confused. You just need to know.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Need to Know. Kip Keefer with you with everything you need to know. And the first thing you need to know is I'm recording this on Labor Day. I was just talking to the proprietor of this enterprise, the one and only Tony Kurre, and reminding him that today is Labor Day. But in the sweatshop that is TKR, Tony Kurre Radio, there ain't no stinking holidays.
That's right, baby. That's right. No stinking holidays. Not even for Kip Keefer. We work 24 hours a day, brother.
Listen, the man's still repressing me. So we're going to forge ahead because it's Monday, and that means it's time for TKR to present Need to Know, and I'm happy to do it for you. Voice is a little raspy. I'm a little bit burned out. I just came through a weekend of about, 30 hours of college football, pretty much nonstop. And got that back online. A lot of different programs here on TKR, which I'm delighted and blessed to be bringing you every week or being a part of. And of course, we do a lot of radio on terrestrial radio still, with back-to-back programs on Saturday and Sunday on WJOX 94.5 Birmingham. We have Game Time on Saturday morning. We have The Morning After on Sunday, and of course the starting lineup on ABC 3340 every Saturday morning, 10:30, and it is now in a prime position as a pregame kickoff show because the ABC new programming, SEC on ABC, and what a splash ABC got off to this week. They did 3 games on Saturday, back to back to back, all led in by the starting lineup. We saw Georgia and Clemson, followed by Florida and Miami, then Texas A&M and Notre Dame. And if that wasn't enough, they came back last night with a prime time game from Las Vegas, as if you missed it, Brian Kelly and LSU for the 3rd consecutive year was defeated in one of these made-for-television extravaganzas. LSU starts 0-1 again as USC beats the favored Bayou Bengals with a couple of late touchdowns. So anyway, I'm trying to get it together, and from a voice standpoint and energy level, get ready for Need to Know. Kind of a hodgepodge today, just a couple of odds and ends I want to talk about. Let's start with Labor Day itself. It's an interesting dynamic, and I think it ties very closely into what we have in this country right now in terms of our modern day situations. And if you really look, American history, we're only 248 years old. In the scheme of things, we're basically a toddler in terms of length of nation and civilization and whatnot. And so a lot of the influence, and it's one of the things, and I think I've mentioned it here on the show a few times, it's one of the things that really bothers me, that the whole concept of history, particularly American history, has not only been kind of ignored at this point. A lot of people, especially the younger generation that I'm still lucky enough through my sons to spend a lot of time interacting with people of the next generations. A lot of them will tell you, I don't really know much about history. I don't pay much attention to history. I don't like it. Whatever, it's boring. You can't really identify where you are as a country, as a principle of why you're here and what you stand for, or your individual beliefs, if you don't have some kind of foundation and basic understanding of how we've arrived in this place. And it's one of the things. I guess I was an oddball, but from the day I could walk and talk. I've been interested, fascinated really in how this country came to be, of what it is and what it's supposed to be, what it stands for, what its founding principles are, the people that did what they accomplished, to come with this audacious idea of this exceptional country where the government is not run by a king, is not run by a dictator. It's not a group of people telling you what you can and can't do. This is a country where the concept was the citizens of the country are going to set the tone and are going to make the decisions. They're going to elect representatives to go and directly watch out for their interests in a central government situation that is conceived to be basically for the security of this nation and for passing laws that are for the good of this nation, working closely in conjunction with the states, hence the United States of America. This was not the United Federal Government of America. And the concept is brilliant on its own, a government of the people, by the people, for the people. But we see ourselves kind of drifting away from that principle. And no wonder, because the people that have kind of formed an opposite view of things don't have really the foundation of knowledge of what this country was founded upon and the absolute brilliance, really, of what the conception of the founding fathers were. These guys had this vision. And it started, and like to talk about a little bit on this Labor Day, and we'll get into the concepts of how that began in just a minute. But even going back farther than that, the people that left Europe, which was predominantly the people that settled this nation, starting in the 1700s, really wanted to get away from that kind of monarchical rule throughout Europe. And what a gig they had back in those days. For those of you who don't know the history, all of these countries in Europe basically were ruled by two families. They were all related. They were all cousins. It was all a bunch of incestuous, close bloodlines with nieces and nephews and cousins and even brothers and sisters in some cases. And all of these people ruled different countries. In fact, World War I in the early part of the 20th century was basically starting off a conflict between England, France, in combination basically against Germany, and all of those countries were ruled by people that were related to each other. So it was kind of like a giant family feud, really kind of a situation that a lot of people that yearn to make their own decisions and go somewhere and take a chance that they can make a better life for themselves and their families and their future descendants, took that chance, got on a boat, which was not a done deal, by the way. A lot of the ways people got to this country, unlike now where we're flying people in and putting them on buses and driving them to the border, it was an ominous thing to come over here for the most part and try and develop this new country with this bold new idea. And it was a bold new idea. It was an experiment, really. There had been in ancient situations of civilizations like Greece and Rome, the foundations of this kind of approach, but it was always kind of usurped eventually because somebody rose to power that kind of took away the whole concept of citizen government, even if they were still elected people in other branches of the government. But a lot of the foundation of America comes from those ancient civilizations who were on the right track. But always in the history of the world, there have been people that just think that they are more qualified to make decisions, elitists that get into positions of power that kind of tear down the whole concept of representative government. And that's sort of an overview of where we are right now. But again, I blame a lot of this on the fact that the education system in this country has just deteriorated to the point where we don't teach kids how they've gotten to this point and the sacrifices and the audacity really of our founders to forge this whole bold experiment. And I think that's really an unfortunate thing, because I think if more people really understood what this country is, what it was founded on, what it stands for, I don't think you'd have so much idiocy of people parading around in the streets and screaming and yelling. You always hear the narrative that, protests are part of America. And yes, they are, but they're protests not founded on stupidity and on indoctrination of those who have other ideas of what America should be. And I think all too often, if they do stick a microphone in the face of somebody stomping around and yelling and screaming and burning American flags and all of that, you don't really get any substance from these people. They really don't know what they're out there protesting. Right now, of course, we've got this gigantic movement, and I really want to get into this as we wrap things up in a few minutes. But right now, you've got people in the streets demanding a ceasefire in Israel and the Middle East, and reaching a peace deal. If those people had any idea how just moronic that position is, and I'm going to tell you why it is in just a second. But if anybody had any understanding, yes, protesting is part of the deal, and being able to have your voice be heard. But your voice needs to be based on some knowledge, not just this knee-jerk reaction prompted by others. And in all these cases, you've got these individuals that get involved in this that are paid agitators. And I've talked about this before. This is not speculation. This is absolute proof, because so if the media gets off of their ass and does their job and looks into any of these individuals, and occasionally there'll be some ambitious journalist or organization that doesn't, you find that the people out there stirring up all this trouble in a lot of our big cities and in places where there's media attention. It's always got to be media attention. You don't see these people gathering in Butte, Montana, or out in the California desert. They have to be where there is exposure, because that's what this is all about. But the fact of the matter is, it's got to be based on protest and demands for change based on stupidity are not a very smart approach. And I'm getting out of my sequence here, but I'll circle back, because the two basic themes today was to talk about the concept of America and what it stands for, to talk about this holiday and how it fits in to everything that is happening now. But since I've already kind of gotten off that highway onto the exit of talking about this whole Middle East situation, let me get that out of the way first. I watched a lot of media coverage late last night, still kind of wound up and couldn't get to sleep. I was flipping around, and on 2 or 3 networks, I hear these people saying, well, including, let me just point out, including our candidate on the Democrat side for president, Kamala Harris, I hear her saying, well, it is absolutely essential that we go ahead and get the deal, get the ceasefire with Hamas and get the Israelis to stand down. Because when they say ceasefire, they're not talking about the cessation of hostilities. They're talking about Israel ceasing fire. They're talking about Israel not trying to defend their right to exist. And that is exactly what Israel is trying to do now. When you fall into a pit of rattlesnakes, you've got 2 choices. You can fight and try to kill off the rattlesnakes that will kill you, or you can just try and sit there and be still and hope that they'll go away, which they won't, because you can't make a deal with those pit of rattlesnakes. You can't negotiate with them. And Hamas is not a country. It is an entity with one central theme: to eliminate Israel from the face of the earth, and that means eliminating Israelis. So you've got people out in the street chanting and yelling about genocide and how Israel is destroying the poor Palestinian people, when the people behind that are an organization recognized around the world as a terrorist organization. Let me say that again. They are recognized and certified by the entire world. Hamas is a terrorist organization funded by a terrorist state, Iran. So you've got people out defending Hamas. You've got idiot journalists saying, well, it's just high time that a deal's made and these peace talks are going on. So you've got a whole delegation of these idiots from all of these parts of the world, including ours, this administration, who I don't know whose administration it is. Our president hasn't been present and accounted for in more than almost 2.5 weeks now, after a 9-day stint in Delaware, following a 7-day stint on the West Coast at a donor's house in California. So we've got an absentee president and vice president because she's out actually running for president. You've got whoever the shadow government people pulling the strings. I guess they're on duty. They don't work for Tony Curry Radio, so I'm sure they're not working today. But the bottom line is, you've got all of this insanity going on, this vacuum of leadership in America. So you've got a bunch of suits and, Islamic people representing other places in the Middle East, having these talks in various places to try and reach some kind of deal. And I heard a journalist last night say, well, I don't know how effective those can be because Hamas is not invited to be at the table. No shit, Sherlock. Hamas is not invited to be at the table because they're not a country. They're a terrorist organization. You don't sit down and negotiate with terrorists. This country had a bottom line principle for a lot of years. We do not negotiate with terrorists. It is common sense. We're back in the rattlesnake pit. You don't negotiate there. You try to fight your way out and fight off the attackers. They are not going to make a deal with you. It has nothing to do with negotiation. It's absolutely ridiculous. And that was highlighted now, and they just get put back in the corner when this weekend Israeli forces closed in on a location where there were hostages being held underground. The ceasefire, the Hamas side isn't firing. They're hiding like a bunch of jackals because the Israeli army is trying to save the entire situation in Israel, save their country, save their people. And to do that, they've got to eliminate these rattlesnakes, otherwise known as Hamas, who are existing only to eradicate and destroy and make Israel disappear from the face of the earth. It's kill or be killed. There's no deal. There's no negotiation. There's no ceasefire. If one Hamas leader survives this after the October 7th, just horrifying events where they literally went and killed old people and raped little girls and burned people alive, killing over 1,000 people. That's what terrorists do. You don't negotiate with that. You cut that head off. That is exactly how you respond to that, and how the rest of the world has been bamboozled that this is some kind of Israeli plot to do all these genocidal horrific deeds is absolutely incomprehensible. So you don't sit down. They don't have a seat at the table for a reason. They're not a legitimate entity. They are a terrorist organization. You've got these idiots out there with signs about supporting Hamas. It's absolutely bizarre. Women screaming, yelling that Hamas is coming and we've got to support them. And it's just terrible that all these people are being killed. Hamas and the Palestinian people are not the same thing. Although the Palestinian people, if you ask the man on the street, they're indoctrinated the same way these morons in our country are, because they think Hamas is fighting for their best interests. They don't realize that Hamas doesn't give a happy damn about them, that all the resources that the world is sending in there for the poor, abused Palestinian people, Hamas is taking and selling on the black market so they can still fund their efforts to continue this war with Israel. The sheer stupidity and really ignorance is a better word, because the people probably aren't really stupid. They're just ignorant because they only want to see what they're told to see. Nobody wants to use their own mind to say, wait a minute, what are we out here protesting and fighting for? This is absurd. These people are terrorists. And the irony is they hate the West just as much. So all these people out screaming for justice for the Palestinians and supporting Hamas, they would kill you in an instant. You're a Westerner. You're not an Islamic person. You do not espouse to this archaic, ancient belief system that they have. And if you're a woman, you are really, not only would they kill you, but they also would, if they let you live, would treat you as a fourth, fifth, sixth class citizen. Women are not regarded to have any rights, are not allowed to pursue educations. This is like going back to the 1200s. It's absolutely absurd that people are not more educated and don't know what they're out there protesting, because again, you do not negotiate with a pit of rattlesnakes. You do not negotiate with these kind of people. And even our presidential candidate, Kamala Harris, talking about we have got to get a deal. Well, here's what your deal is. The Israelis closing in on rescuing 6 hostages on Saturday, and the terrorists, the rattlesnakes, hopelessly trapped. What did they do? Did they surrender? Were the hostages saved? No, that didn't work. They just executed every one of the 6 hostages, including an American. They just shot him in the head and fled instead of being caught, because they couldn't get away if they tried to keep their captives with them. There's still over 100 people in that situation. Imagine, it's been almost a year. These people have had to live underground with these rats and be terrorized every minute. I'm sure abused. I'm sure women raped. I'm sure barely fed or taken care of. I can't imagine how many of them have died in captivity. So all of this time negotiating is absolutely absurd, because these people don't want to make a deal. They're incapable of making a deal or negotiating. These are rattlesnakes. These are terrorists. These people have one goal and one goal only: to wreak all the havoc they can to ultimately destroy a whole group of people, create genocide on every Jewish person, every Israeli. And it's absolutely ridiculous that we're out screaming about genocide when the group you're supporting is based on that very principle. Enough rambling about that. Real quick. This election is not about Democrat versus Republican. This election is about the preservation of this country. This election is about the founding fathers and their vision and their audacity and their bravery to stand up and say, this isn't right. We're going to fight for our freedom, our liberty, our individual choices. That's what this election is about, because you've got Kamala Harris, who's a perfect representative of somebody who really has limited intellectual capacity, who has been brainwashed her whole life, and her views are America is evil. America needs major transformation. She said it in that interview. She finally gave an interview which was taped, controlled, edited, but even her disposition was obvious. because her campaign, the game that they're playing with you that you cannot fall for. The campaign releases sound bites to the media, and the sound bites are all policies that Americans support. Secure the borders, stop violent crime, make life affordable for the American people. These are all principles that Donald Trump on the other side is running for. So the campaign is releasing all these sound bites every week that Kamala Harris is for all of these things that her opponent is running on. But at the same time, she stands up. Well, she didn't stand up. She was sitting down in this interview and says, I just want everyone to know I have not abandoned my principles. So what she's saying to you is that I am still Kamala Harris, left wing. I still have my radical agenda, but you don't hear her talking about building a wall, which she has repudiated repeatedly in her past. You don't hear her talking about that. That's her campaign, releasing these sound bites to get out into circulation to try and create the illusion that this is a moderate now candidate who's running in a centrist position because she's evolved in her platform. She defiantly said, I have not compromised my principles in that interview. That was a message that while I'm trying to win the presidency, when I get in office, I'm going to do what I've always tried to do, and that's be way left and completely reform this country, take away your individual liberties, have a massive government, a Marxist government telling everybody how they should conduct themselves. This country needs to be led. It needs to be changed. She even mentioned that I think the American people are yearning for a new direction. Well, Kamala, let me give you a quick headline from my place in the rattlesnake pit. I don't want to negotiate with you. I don't want to compromise my position. And I think if my fellow Americans would spend 10 minutes and look at this from a realistic standpoint, you all would agree with me that we don't need any part of this socialist, delusional, intellectually limited person who is running against taking away the whole concept of America, which was founded with American exceptionalism, which is not a concept that we're better than everybody else. It's a concept that we need to found a nation that is a shining city on a hill. It's a biblical passage, and it talks about all eyes will be cast upon the shining city on the hill. Ronald Reagan talked about it all the time. It means that we're going to be something above everybody else in the world, that we're going to aspire to be the ultimate society where there's liberty and justice and freedom for all. And that's what is at stake in this election. It is the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. And happiness in that concept wasn't personal enhancement. It was the constant goal to achieve life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which means the acquisition of virtue and the acquisition of morality. And that is what this country is founded on. And if you don't believe in those things, or you're not educated enough to realize what you have, which is better than what everybody in the world has, then you go ahead and place your vote for this charlatan rattlesnake in the pit who wants to make a deal with people that are killers and who wants to transform this country into something it's not. That's need to know for this day. Finally, real quick, Labor Day was founded first in 1892 because American workers were being abused. There were not any rules and regulations to protect them, and a movement started. And this is the best of America, a movement for the justice and the reforms of the workplace. That is the kind of protest that this country is founded on. When something is wrong, let's make it right. Not when something is misunderstood and even evilly intercepted, let's overhaul it. The traditions of Labor Day and so many of the ways that this country has evolved is the things worth fighting for and preserving. And to just go, well, this is going to be great. This is going to be a female of color. It's going to be historic to put her in office. Yeah, it's going to be historic and suicidal, because this woman does not believe in the concepts of America that you and I believe in. She doesn't believe in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. She believes in massive central government, living your life and running your life and knowing what's best for you other than yourself. So it's easy to get into these kind of deals by voting for, quote, change, unquote. But once you're in this socialist Marxist nightmare, it is damn hard to get out. It's a bottom line deal. You either vote for America or you vote to be Venezuela, who is now suffering the repercussions from 20 years ago, making the horrible decision to put socialists in charge. Their country is down the drain. It is a hellhole. And if that's the path you want to go down, there's plenty of historical precedent to tell you that that's a horrible decision to go that direction. Back to the whole concept of understanding history and learning from it. And that's the message today on Need to Know. Have a wonderful holiday weekend, everybody. College football's back, so all's right with the world. We'll be back with you next Monday. Not a holiday, so we'll report for duty on the Tony Kurre Network. I'm Kip Keefer. Have a fantastic week, everybody.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.